You don't have a boundary problem, you have a guilt problem. You see, from my experience as a coach and therapist, most leaders that I work with know what boundaries they need to set. They know they shouldn't be checking emails after work or at weekends, and they know they should be pushing back on unrealistic deadlines when they're expected of them, but they don't. And they don't because the thought of saying no often feels selfish, difficult, or like they're letting people down. So what I want to talk about in this video very briefly is why just saying no doesn't work and what you can do instead that actually does. So first, let's be honest about why boundary setting is so hard. It's not because you don't know how to set boundaries, it's because saying no triggers anxiety, guilt, or even fear of being seen as difficult or uncommitted. But the cost of saying yes when you ought to say no is massive. You do work that isn't yours. Your own work gets pushed aside, you get frustrated, and you end up overcommitted, exhausted, and eventually feeling resentful. And the people you said yes to, well, they don't even realize you've sacrificed your well-being to accommodate them. Why? Because you've trained them to expect it. Every time you say yes when you ought to say no, you're teaching people that your time and energy are negotiable, and that's just not sustainable long term. So here's what most people don't realize. Boundary violations don't just stress you out mentally, they actually affect your body, and here's why. See, when you violate your own boundaries, your nervous system registers that as a threat, because on a physiological level, you're ignoring your own needs to please someone else, and that creates an internal conflict. So in response to this threat, your body responds by releasing stress hormones, which results in things like muscle tension, increased heart rate, shallow breathing, all the same signals as if you were in actual danger. And over time, these responses drain your energy. You end up feeling exhausted, not because you're doing too much work, but because you're constantly overriding your own limits and ignoring the signals your body is giving you. Porous boundaries don't just mess with your schedule, they mess with your nervous system. And that's why boundary work isn't just about saying no, it's about feeling safe enough to honor your own needs without feeling guilty. So what do good boundaries actually look and sound like? Well, first of all, they're very, very clear. They're not vague or apologetic, they're just straightforward. So as an example, vague and apologetic sound something like this. I'm not sure I can do that. I'm quite busy at the moment. Maybe ask someone else. Where in contrast, clear and straightforward will sound like this. I can't take that on right now. My focus is on X and Y and I need to protect that time. Can you hear the difference there? Second, they're firm but kind. In communicating boundaries, you're not being difficult, you're being honest. And here's the thing, good boundaries don't require long explanations or justifying. In other words, you don't need to list every reason why you can't do something. I can't take that on is a complete sentence which should feel comfortable to say. The guilt will come and that's just normal, but guilt doesn't mean you've done something wrong. It just means you're doing something that's unfamiliar. But the more you practice, I promise you, the less you'll feel guilty and the easier it will become. So let's be clear, boundaries aren't walls. They're a way of saying what you can and cannot do. And that kind of honesty is what makes sustainable and effective leadership possible. And it's healthy for relationships. Well-defined and communicated boundaries provide clarity to others and keep you from burning out. And those worth keeping in your life will respect you more for it, not less. So ask yourself the question, where are you saying yes when you should say no? And what would change if you stopped? You see, you might think that just getting better at managing your time or working a bit longer or learning to prioritize properly will rid you of stress. But here's what actually happens. You sort your diary, you work harder, put longer shifts in, and you still feel overwhelmed, frustrated, and like you're drowning.